When Stephen A did I'm pleading with you as a father to end this, that really, really bothered LeBron.
Need the full context.
And that was why, by the way, LeBron's people called Stephen A, and then Stephen A made fun of him for it. So then LeBron handled it himself, which felt to me totally reasonable. And so I didn't really get when Stephen A is like, you have my number, all this stuff. Like, Stephen A always says, I'm at the games, I'm around, come talk to me. That's what he did. But when you're talking to a guy who had no relationship with his father whatsoever, and then basically telling that guy in LeBron, be a better father, that is going to really, really ruffle some feathers.
Nick Wright reacts to LeBron confronting Stephen A. Smith. Check out what he had to say, and then I'll come back with my comments.
The LeBron Stephen A moment.
That's what I've been waiting for.
One is, just generally speaking, and this gets to where my frustration about how LeBron has been covered forever. The killer instinct, people aren't afraid of him. He's not this guy, he's not that guy. So much of that just has to do with how he's been covered rather than the reality. Because what happened on Thursday night was, in a game it looked like the Lakers were going to lose. In between the third and fourth quarter, LeBron James saw the world's most famous sports media member, who he thinks has been unfair to him and his family. More on that in a second.
I'm sure LeBron doesn't feel everything that Stephen A's been saying about him personally, but to try to use Bronny as the reason why to crash out on him in public, I think LeBron could have done this behind the scenes. They all know each other. They all have mutual parties involved. Why go off like that in public? And again, if it's about Bronny, so be it. But just to use that as the narrative to where, I see Stephen A. Smith, let me go off on him in public. It wasn't a good look for LeBron, but, Nick Wright, he going to stand behind LeBron and clutch, and I get it. He's a fan of LeBron, but you got to try to keep it real as well.
Walked over to him, checked him, and then against that guy's favorite team ever, walked them down, hit the three in the corner to cut it from 4-1 directly in front of that person, and then won in overtime, hitting all the clutch free throws.
LeBron James has officially surpassed Michael Jordan.
If that were
might as well
Michael or Kobe, it would be part of their legend. It would be in their documentaries. Oh, and then this time, walked over to him in a game looked like they were going to lose against that guy's favorite team, and then won the game. And so that's just, I thought that was, I think most of us, when we saw it, assumed that happened after the game. And
so if the Lakers are up by like 20 or 30 and just shutting the Knicks out, would LeBron James have walked over to Stephen A. Smith and kind of went off on him? Was there some frustration with the game because it wasn't going in the Lakers' favor? And he was like, you know what? There goes Stephen A. Smith. I might as well crash out. So I know LeBron James, he's able to control these narratives. But again, doing that in public, knowing what Bron represents, the way that he handles himself in public, he could have did better than that.
And I was even a little confused because I was watching that game, and that game LeBron went right to the locker room after the game. And then when you saw it, it looked like something was going on the court. So I remember when the video first came out being like, was that during a live action essentially? But
after.
I didn't put it all together, and then we got the real details. It was between third and fourth quarter. Now,
leave Bronny
because I
alone.
think a lot of people have been really dishonest and unfair about acting like, oh, LeBron's son's in the league and now he doesn't want anyone, even though he's an NBA player, to criticize him. That's not what this was.
Exactly. You're right about that. That wasn't the issue. It was bigger than Bronny. LeBron feels a certain way that Stephen A. Smith probably has some things to say about him over the years. And then if you add Bronny in the mix, of course, maybe that made him go over the edge, but it ain't just about Bronny James. He hasn't liked the energy that Stephen A. Smith's been keeping with him, especially recently. So maybe you add all that together and then you get that version of LeBron. But just to say that it has something to do with Bronny, I don't think that's being honest if you're LeBron James.
This was a number of different things. The first one is this. I do think, as far as criticism of Bronny James, I do think it is, listen, Bronny James as a basketball player is totally fair, a fair target. Where I think there might be some frustration is, have you heard, and I'm going to mispronounce some of these names, any of these names in any media whatsoever, except for maybe the most in the weeds, dedicated local team podcasts?
Go ahead and deflect. Let's go.
Baylor Shireman, Jonathan Mogbo, Kyle Filipowski, Tyler Smith, Tyler Kolek, Johnny Furphy, Juan Nunez, Bobby Clintman, AJ Mitchell, Jalen Wells, Oso Iguodaro, Adam Bona, KJ Simpson, Nikola Durisic, Pell Larson, Jamal Sheed, Cam Christie, Antonio Reeves, Harrison Ingram, Tristan Newton, Enrique Freeman, Melvin Ajinka, Quentin Post. I've been hearing some Quentin Post. He's been playing well
Golden State.
For the Warriors.
I know that
Cam
guy.
Spencer, Anton Watson, Kevin McCullough Jr., Ulrich Kamchi, Ariel Huckporty. The only guy I've heard mentioned all year. Now, the first couple names I mentioned, Filipowski obviously was a great college player, and Shireman was a really good college player.
Deflect, man.
All year, maybe a little Jamal Sheed. Those are all the second-round picks.
Okay.
So it's not as if on these shows we talk a lot about second-round picks.
Yeah, that's cool. I get your point, Nick. But those second-round picks, their father isn't LeBron James. So, of course, the microscope is going to be on Bronny. And, all eyes on him. So, if he's not playing good, if he doesn't look NBA ready, of course, content is going to be produced around Bronny James and LeBron James. Should he have stayed in college? Did he need to rush the process just to help, fulfill LeBron James' dream of, playing on the same team as his son? Yeah, it's cool. It's a great story. Many years from now, maybe it won't be as bad, but in the moment, what do you expect people to talk about? No one's talking about Quentin Post or those other players. They have no relation to LeBron James. So, yeah, I get your point. No one's mentioning those second-round picks, but again, they have no connection to LeBron James.
So you might be like, well, yeah, but Bronny is getting more opportunity, getting more run. He's playing in more NBA games than most second-round picks. Well, let's check.
Clutch
Bronny
sports.
James, the 55th pick of the draft. Here is where he ranks amongst rookies this year in the following categories. Again, you'd hope, I did this once before, I will do it again. The 55th pick, you would hope, is around 55th in everything. In minutes played in the NBA, Bronny James, the 55th pick, is 56th. In games played, Bronny James, the 55th pick, is 51st. In assists, Bronny James, the 55th pick, is 53rd. In steals, Bronny James, the 55th pick, is 48th. In points, Bronny James, the 55th pick, is 56th. So in other words, playing exactly to his draft status.
Yeah, perfect. What you're saying is on point. You pulled up the stats and you were able to read them perfectly. Salute to you, Nick Wright. And again, I know you have allegiance to LeBron and Clutch Sports and Rich Paul and all those individuals within that ecosystem. But what does this have to do with Stephen A. Smith and the LeBron James confrontation? Everything that Stephen A. Smith said about Bronny, he's really been going easy on him. We've seen Stephen A. Smith go off on people before. Yeah, it could have been Kwame Brown that was the number one pick that had expectations. But still, we've seen Stephen A. Smith disrespect plenty of players that have been playing worse than Bronny. But of course, Bronny, he's not going to have that same type of criticism in the media. So if Stephen A. Smith is saying, why is LeBron James doing this? Put him in the G League and kind of let's forget about Bronny until he's NBA ready. Paraphrasing what he said, but still, he didn't really say anything crazy about Bronny. But LeBron James, perfect opportunity to kind of change the narrative.
Yeah, well, those are garbage time minutes. What does that really mean? What's he doing in the G League? 21-5-5 in the G League regular season, 34 minutes per game on 45-39 splits. So I think some of the frustration is the Lakers took in the first round last year, Jalen Hood-Schifino, who is, let me check his G League stats, who is no longer on the Lakers. They didn't even...
Still ain't getting to the Stephen
He
A.
got
part,
waived or moved. I don't even remember. And he is this year, I don't know, not the tip-off tournament.
I ain't gonna lie. Shout
regular
out to you,
season.
Not hating, but
in the G League. Sorry, this is taking me a moment.
Yeah, get to the LeBron and Stephen A. part.
Last year in the G League, the Lakers' first-round pick. Again, Bronny this year in the G League, 21-5-5. Last year in the G League, their first-round pick. What number was he overall? I think 17. It was pre-20, I know, because there was a really good player taken right after him. He was 17. Pods, who everybody in the Warriors loves, went 19. So Bronny this year, 21-5-5, is the 55th pick for the Lakers G League team. Jalen Hood-Schifino, 22-5-5.
Bronny is playing much better in the G League, but I want to see him keep that same energy on the NBA floor. So shout out to Bronny for at least increasing his play to some capacity, but I want to see him mirror that when he's in the NBA, even in garbage minutes. Act like you're an NBA player. You play good in the G League, so it should hopefully transfer over to the NBA.
So it does feel like, well, we don't really talk about these guys and then this. But that's not what this was about. This actually wasn't about Bronny. And this is the part that I think just should be level set. It was about two things. One, the commentary when, and I said it before, I'll say it again, I really like Stephen A. But I'm just trying to, so I'm not even making as much of a value judgment about this. I'm just trying to kind of set the record straight.
Walking on eggshells.
When Stephen A did I'm pleading with you as a father to end this, that really, really bothered LeBron.
Need a full context.
And that was why, by the way, LeBron's people called Stephen A. And then Stephen A. made fun of him for it. And so then LeBron handled it himself, which felt to me totally reasonable. And so I didn't really get when Stephen A. is like, you have my number, all this stuff. Like, Stephen A. always says, I'm at the games, I'm around, come talk to me. That's what he did. But when you're talking to a guy who had no relationship with his father whatsoever, and then basically telling that guy in LeBron, be a better father, that is going to really, really ruffle some feathers.
But I think Stephen A. was more talking about in basketball terms. Of course, when you start, bringing up family and fatherhood and stuff like that, I get it, but you got to hear the full context. He always goes back to saying, he's only talking about the NBA. He's not talking about him personally. And he's coming from a father standpoint. He got kids too. So I don't think it was really like that or meant like that. And if he did have a conversation behind the scenes and it didn't get anywhere, yeah, of course, approach him. But to go off on him like that, LeBron is more calculated than that. It's just not like any other player that may have had an outburst like that. It's LeBron James that really, makes sure he acts accordingly in the public. So it's levels to it.
Then when you add to it the fact that we've all kind of memory hold, the fact that Bronny suffered cardiac arrest and almost died less than a year and a half ago, when you have that added kind of anxiety as a parent, which any parent that's ever had any health scare with any of their kids, and for the those parents out there listening who've lost a child, I can't imagine.
Again, shout out to Bronny. No one wants to even bring up the cardiac arrest situation in this conversation. But if LeBron was having that type of anxiety, he should really talk to Bronny and be like, you know what? I know you want to play basketball, but as a parent, as a father, I think you should kind of step away from, that type of physical activity because I'm concerned that something may happen to you. So you don't really want to mix in that with this conversation. But I get it, though. He got to kind of tie everything together.
But for the majority of us, we've never had a health scare like that, but we've almost all had something where we're super nervous. You can't imagine what it'd be like. You get the phone call, your kid's getting CPR. So you're certainly going to be on added edge. And then the other piece is this. Does it feel like there has been, and this is where the leave my son out of it part, I guess, is about Bronny. Does it feel like there has been, is it surprising when you hear Bronny in the NBA is playing exactly to the level of the 55th pick supposed to? When you hear in the G League, he is producing exactly to the level the Lakers' first round pick, 17th overall, did last year. Does it feel like that's what's been, when they've decided to talk about him in the media, that's been the topic? Or or that's been the context, pardon me, or does it feel more like it's been, this is a make-a-wish story. This is a guy who has no business being there and is way out of his depth.
Again, shout out to Bronny. I'm glad he's back. I'm glad he's healthy and trying to, make his NBA dream come true and working on his game. But, as of right now, he's not NBA ready and he is playing like a 55th pick. But again, those other second round picks, their father is a LeBron James, so of course people are going to cover in the media. You talked about Charles Barkley and the way that the mainstream media is only covering the Lakers. Of course, they're going to cover LeBron James' son the same way. It's going to get clicks and views, so you know what the play is, Nick, right? You understand what's going on, but if it's something to do with LeBron, I know you're going to try to pivot and change up the narrative, but just as far as LeBron James confronting Stephen A. Smith, we hold LeBron to a higher standard. He's not like your average NBA player. The way that he maneuvers in the media, never really had an issue off the court. He's held to that higher standard, so of course, we didn't expect LeBron James to do it, but he is a parent, so it is what it is. But I think it's bigger than Bronny James. I think it's more to do what Stephen A. Smith's been saying for years now, kind of keeping a different type of energy with LeBron. He's not as protected as he was years ago in the media, so I think you add all that up, and then you sprinkle in Bronny James, of course. Maybe he decided to lose it and go over the edge a little bit and call out Stephen A. Smith in person. But so shout out to LeBron. He stood on business, didn't really say anything else about it. Don't know if the media is going to really question it. You see Stephen A., he addressed it on his podcast, but other than the ESPN First taking his pod, he ain't really going to talk about that no more. He don't really want to bring up that energy. And again, we'll see if LeBron James and Stephen A. Smith can patch that up and get on the same accord.